Hello students, we are continuing the last video, the same essay, National Prejudices. But my pseudo patriot had no mind to let me escape so easily. We have read it in the last video, so now we explain it. Goldsmith was cosmopolitan in his outlook. He did not approve of narrow nationalism. He believed that every country has its good qualities. It is wrong to praise one's own country and disregard or underestimate others. He was not in full agreement with the gentleman who praised Englishmen and found faults with men of other lands. He admitted that the Englishmen were certainly brave and charitable, but the weaknesses they possessed were many. They had many defects in their character. They were rash, obstinate, and haughty. They became uncommonly happy, so being prosperous and rich, they felt very greatly disappointed in misfortune. This showed the fickleness of the character. Hence, in Goldsmith's opinion, they could not be praised outright. To say that the English excelled the people of all other lands is in most of human virtues is wrong. It showed that we are prejudiced against other countries. Goldsmith was cosmopolitan in his outlook. He liked to call himself a citizen of the world and regarded different nationals superior in different matters. He says that Englishmen were brave and generous, but they were rash, haughty, and hasty in their behavior. And Dutch are more frugal, while French were polite and Germans were hardy. In the Spanish are more steady and sober. So there are some good qualities in all the people of various nations. I could easily perceive that all the company began to regard me with a jealous eye. Before I had finished my answer, which I had no sooner done than the patriotic gentleman observed with a contemptuous sneer that he was greatly surprised how some people could have the conscience to live in a country which they did not love and to enjoy the protection of a government to which in their hearts they were inveterate enemies. Finding that by this modest declaration of my sentiments I had fortified the good opinion of my companions and give them occasion to call my political principles in question, and well knowing that it was in vain to argue with men who were so very full of themselves, I threw done my reckoning and retired to my own lodgings, reflecting on the absurd and ridiculous nature of national prejudice and prepossession. Among all the famous sayings of antiquity, there is none that does greatest honor to the author or affords greater pleasure to the reader, at least if he be a person of a generous and benevolent heart, than that of the philosopher who, being asked that countryman he was, replied that he was a citizen of the world. How few are there to be found in modern times who can say the same, or whose conduct is consistent with such a profession. We are now become so much Englishmen, Frenchmen, Dutchmen, Spaniards, or Germans that we are no longer citizens of the world, so much the natives of one particular sport or member of one petty society, that we no longer consider ourselves as the general inhabitants of the globe or members of that grand society which comprehends the whole humankind. So, Goldsmith says, and Goldsmith thought that his views would make these people angry, as they would not like his cosmopolitan outlook. Goldsmith said that although Englishmen were brave and generous, they had some defects also. He pointed out the weaknesses in the character of Englishmen. He also pointed out in what respects the Dutch, Germans, the Frenchmen, and the Spanish were superior to Englishmen. Goldsmith's frankness was not appreciated by the gentlemen. They began to suspect his loyalty to the government of the country. All of them were proud and vain persons. They thought themselves to be very important. With such men, Goldsmith did not want to discuss anything. So he called the waiter of the inn. He paid to the room where he was staying. He thought of the bias and fixed ideas which one nation had for another. Such ideas, in Goldsmith's opinion, were not only foolish but also funny. He was cosmopolitan in his outlook. He was conscious of the virtues of the people of other lands. He knew that Englishmen also had many virtues, but they had their defects also. It is wrong to shut our eyes against them. This cannot be called disloyalty to the motherland. We should love and like all the countries. Goldsmith liked to call himself a citizen of the world. Did these prejudices prevail only among the meanest and lowest of the people? Perhaps they might be excused, as they have few, if any, opportunities of correcting them by reading, travelling, or conversing with foreigners. But the misfortune is that they infect the minds and influence the conduct even of our gentlemen, of those, I mean, who have every title to this appellation but an exemption from prejudice, which, however, in my opinion, ought to be regarded as the characteristical mark of a gentleman. For let a man's birth be ever so high, his station ever so exalted, or his fortune ever so large, yet if he is not free from national and other prejudices, I should make bold to tell him that he had a low and vulgar mind, and had not just claim to the character of a gentleman. And in fact, you will always find that those are most apt to boast of national merit who have little or no merit of their own to depend on, than which to be sure, nothing is more natural. The slender vine twists around the sturdy oak, and for no other reason in the world but because it has no strength sufficient to support itself. Should it be alleged in defense of national prejudice that it is the natural and necessary growth of love to our country, and that therefore the former cannot be destroyed without hurting the latter? I answer that this is a gross fallacy and delusion, that it is the growth of love to our country. I will allow, but this that it is the natural and necessary growth of it. I absolutely deny. Superstition and enthusiasm too are the growth of religion, but whoever took it in his head of to affirm that they are the necessary growth of this noble principle, they are, if you will, the bastard sprouts of this heavenly plant, but not its natural and genuine branches, and may safely enough be lopped off without doing any harm to the parent stock. Nay, perhaps till once they are lopped off, this goodly tree can never flourish in perfect health and vigor. Is it not very possible that I may love my own country without hating the natives of the other countries? That I may exert the most heroic bravery, the most undaunted resolution in defending its laws and liberty without despising all the rest of the world as cowards and poltroons. Most certainly it is, and if it were not. But why need I suppose what is absolutely impossible? But if were not, I must own I should prefer the title of the ancient philosopher, viz., a citizen of the world, to that of an Englishman, a Frenchman, a European, or to any other appellation whatever. So, in the next video, we'll explain the remaining part. Thank you.